everybody, Justin the Diabetic here, and hopefully I will bring a lot of good points to you if you're new to the 770G or you're new to auto mode. Some of these points that I'm going to bring forth in this video will work on the 670G and the 770G or the 780G if you do have that available where you currently live. So in this video, I'm going to try to give, from my perspective, the top 10 tips for setting up auto mode, or Smartguard auto mode, whichever name you know that system by. I constantly get asked by several different people, hey, I've got the 770G, what tips do you have? So I'm going to give a shout out to Christy Howell. She kind of inspired me to do this video today. At the time of this recording, on Tuesday, September 7th, she sent me a message, said that she's starting on the 770G, and I didn't really know what content I could bring to you guys this week. So thank you, Christy, for that, because it's kind of fueled this whole little video. So I hope you enjoy this, and anybody else who is also curious about what to do. So like I said, we're gonna go over the top 10 tips for setting up auto mode. These are kind of based on my personal experience. To give you guys some background, I transitioned from a 530G with the in-light sensor to the 670G and the Guardian sensor. When I did this, several of these tips that we're going to discuss, I had to teach myself. I feel like I didn't really have the pump training and the support that I needed, and I was like a lot of you, and I got very frustrated with the pump and the overall process and everything, and it wasn't a good time. Let's just save the long story. So some of these tips, I have some background information that kind of goes in them, and I hope that it kind of helps. And for those of you who classify yourself as an expert on your 670G or your 770G, I'd really like to see in the comments what you guys think of these. Do you relate to them? Was your experience kind of similar? So with all that being said, let's get started. So tip number 10, when you get a new pump, whether it be a 630G or a 770G, the main thing that you need to focus on at the beginning is that the pump's set up correctly. What does that mean? So you want to make sure that your basal rates are accurate and they work for you. You want to make sure that your carb ratio is also accurate and works for you. And your insulin sensitivity and your active insulin times are also set up correctly. Now, I know some of you are going to jive in the comments and say that auto mode doesn't use all that information. It does not. But in the event that you have a pump emergency and your pump malfunctions and you have to get a whole new pump and learn the whole system, you know how to set all this up correctly. It's all fine. It's going to work for you. Sometimes your sensor malfunctions in the middle of the night. You want to take it off and use manual mode. If all these settings are accurate for you, it'll be safe for you to be in manual mode for that extended period of time. So you don't want your pump to be in manual mode not set up correctly, and it gives you a lot more insulin than what auto mode typically has, and you have an extreme low, especially at night. I am thankful that when I do get lower than 70, my body kind of lets me know that, hey, something's up, and it will wake me up at night. But some people don't, and these devices are trying to help us live safer lives as diabetics, so we got to make sure that all little safety nets are kind of in place for us to use. So the next big piece, and this is kind of tip number 9, is the sensor. Auto mode is only going to work as good as your sensor does. So there's several little tips that you can do. First is sensor placement. Medtronic recommends that you place the sensor on your abdomen or your arm. However, you can also get approval from your pump trainer or your endocrinologist to wear your sensor in other places. Places that you would like to try to wear your sensor are going to be places that don't move too much. So for example, I put my sensor in this area on the back side of my arm. It doesn't move too much. The sensor stays on there relatively well. Most of the time, throughout most of the year, I only have to put on one piece of the Medtronic tape to keep my sensor on. But there are some instances where I'll have to do 2, or I keep that second piece of tape for a backup in case the sensor starts to come off. Typically, I do live in Louisiana. It is very humid. It's very hot. When I do things outside, that's when I start experiencing issues with my tape. The other place that I put my sensors are the outer part of my leg. From the top part of the leg where my pocket is down to right now, it's about 6 inches above my kneecap on the outer side of my leg. I've experimented. Like I said, I had the 530G with the Enlight and then the 630G, and all those times wearing those sensors, I found what works best for me. Sometimes we have to do that for ourselves and figure out what works best, especially for you. So, and also make sure you drink plenty of water. We have to think about how these sensors function. They do not look at your blood glucose the way that a finger stick would. They're using that interstitial fluid underneath the skin and seeing some fancy scientific engineering way how much glucose is in our interstitial fluid, and then it's kind of converting that, and that's what we're getting our glucose readings for. So with that being said, you want to make sure that you're well hydrated with water. Drink lots of water and you'll get better sensor accuracy. I drink primarily water. I do occasionally drink unsweet tea, and maybe I drink 10, 20 ounce Coke Zeros throughout the week on a bad week. Sometimes I only have like 1 or 2 a week. It all just kind of depends. You don't want to be drinking all of those carbonated beverages and stuff too much because they also could mess with your hydration. So I say water, and I do try to drink the Gatorade Zeros if I do feel like I have been a little dehydrated to get some electrolytes. That's just my personal experience. All right, so moving forward, tip number 8, you want to make sure that you're carb counting correctly. So I've been a diabetic for 11 years now. Medtronic sent me an email last week congratulating me. I don't really feel like I should congratulate. I mean, I haven't thrown an insulin pump or got myself in the hospital, so I guess that's a good start. We'll celebrate those. So what apps can you use to help you? I've seen people use MyFitnessPal. When I was diagnosed, got a Calorie King book. I wish I still had it. It was a little bit bigger than a small box. So it was a little bit smaller than this, so a little shorter, a little bit narrower. It wasn't too big. It was a nice little book, and it had most like fast food places and common servings of most foods that you would eat at the time. And you could kind of look at it and look at their nutrition information. But now we're in a day and age of technology, so they've also went digital. Their app is a little basic, but it's still pretty good for you to use. I use Fat Secret. That's what you can search on the Apple Store. I'm not sure what the Google Play Store is, what it looks like. But on the Apple Store, it's a green and white app, and it has like a keyhole in it. I really like that because I can kind of my biggest thing is like with Chipotle, for example. I can build my bowl within the app with the average servings for all the toppings that I want and then get a total calculation for that whole meal. That's what I like about Fat Secret. It is free. I don't believe I paid for it. You can use it, and you can do multiple meals. Like I said, you can build what you're eating, and that's kind of what I like. I think that's kind of unique with that app. It's something that I've been really looking for in an app. So tip number 7, you got to give your pump time to learn your insulin needs. Medtronic recommends at least 1 week of using the pump in manual mode with your sensor before activating auto mode. Several people who are experienced will activate auto mode after the 3rd 24-hour cycle past midnight. So what does that mean? If you get a replacement pump or you get your pump and you start it at 5 p.m., once midnight passes, it starts a 72-hour window. So you have to pass midnight 3 times before the pump will allow you to enter auto mode. That is the bare minimum. When you do this, you'll notice the pump is a little bit more cautious because it hasn't built up a good background memory of your insulin needs and how your body reacts to your insulin. With that being said, we're going to go on to tip number 6, which is no fake carbs. I know when you first start auto mode, it's tempting to be like, I can just program 10 grams of carbs. That'll give me some insulin and that'll lower my blood sugar. You don't want to do that. That's going to throw off the pump's algorithm for how much insulin you need because the pump is now thinking, you ate 10 grams of carbs when in actuality you did not. So you're doing yourself more harm than good by entering the fake carbs. Now, there are some people who will enter fake carbs for certain situations. Dawn phenomena, when you wake up, your blood sugar rises. If that works for you, that's fine, but you don't want to be entering in fake carbs at the beginning when auto mode's trying to learn you. because that's just not going to help the pump learn your body needs any faster. Tip number 5 is something that I struggle with, and I'm sure several of you will relate to it. We have to be patient. These pumps are not a one size, or they're designed to be a one size fits all solution. We're all different. I can tell you that I can eat a piece of bread and my carb ratio is a 4 grams of carbs per 1 unit of insulin, and I program 15 grams of carbs and that works fine. That's not going to work fine for you. It could be too much insulin. It could be too less insulin. Everybody's different, and that's the one thing that we all have to remember about these pumps is they're designed for a one size fits all, and we have to mold that to what works for us. We have to learn little tips. Like my tip list that I'm sharing with you now could be totally different from yours, and that's okay. But it's a start, and it's things for you to hopefully think about, and hopefully we can make a couple things better for you. So be patient with the pump. Give it time. You know, like I said, when you first start auto mode, your sugars are going to be higher because the pump is being more cautious. If you want to see how the pump is adjusting, give it a week. Do these steps that I've covered so far. Look at your CareLink reports, your weekly or your daily review, I think is what it's called. You'll get a report that will show you one whole day. And in that whole day, you'll be able to look over here on the side and see what your auto basals are doing. And after a week of doing that, you should be able to scroll down and see that as the week progresses and you're looking at the days that are getting more closer, auto mode is slowly upping your insulin, and it's giving you more insulin with your micro boluses. So be patient. It needs time to work. If you can make a pump adjustment, but you might not see actual change for anywhere from 3 days to a week. So just be patient with it. It needs time. So, step number 4, auto mode is not a cruise control for your diabetes, so you can't be lazy. So, if you're lazy and you do the bare minimum, you're not going to like auto mode. Auto mode is not going to work well for you. I personally have kind of decided I want to go back to manual mode for a little bit. I have had a pump issue that's been bothering me, and auto mode just isn't giving me what I needed. So, in manual mode, we're constantly looking at our sugar. Okay, I have to do a correction. I have to do a correction. I have to do a correction and fix my sugar. It's a little higher. I need to give myself a little more insulin to kind of correct that. Auto mode will do that for you, but you have to follow the different steps that I've told you to get auto mode to learn what your body's needs are and for auto mode to get comfortable with you. After you've done that, it will kind of tune in the different needs that you have, and it'll give you a slightly better control. So now, if you've been on auto mode for a month or two and you're not getting the numbers that you quite want, your sugars are typically a little higher. When I say that, I'm saying your sugars are most of the time are between 150 and 200 or higher. You need to look at some pump settings. There are a couple pump settings that could need to be changed to make auto mode work a little better for you. I'm going to kind of go over those. So first of all, auto mode uses your carb ratio. It doesn't use it. You use it for when you bolus for food. Auto mode looks at your active insulin time. So what that means is if you do a bolus for something, your active insulin time, I believe the minimum is, 2 hours. So if you have your limit set to the minimum, auto mode will think that after 2 hours, all of that insulin that you gave for that food item is now used up. It's no longer in your system. So then it will start to give you more insulin. So if your active insulin time in manual mode is around 3 hours, but you think that's a little high, you could talk to your endocrinologist or your pump trainer, and they might suggest lowering that. It lowers in 15-minute increments. So like I said, they might want you to lower that down to 2 hours and 45 minutes, and then you can give it a week and see if your pump works a little better. Everybody's a little different, so that number could be changed. You could even realize that during the summer months, your active insulin time could be less, and during the winter months, it could be higher, or vice versa. Everybody's bodies are different. So make sure that you talk to your care team and you discuss that number. Now, this final point, insulin sensitivity, is not used by auto mode. But a lot of pumpers, when they remove that sensor and they put it on that charge, they will exit auto mode and go back to manual mode. So that way, your sugar will stay at a steady and stable rate, because most of the time, auto mode in safe basal doesn't give us quite enough insulin, and your sugar is going to rise. So from that 45 minutes of charging your transmitter and then the 2-hour warm-up period, you're at almost 3 hours out of auto mode, and you don't want a super high blood sugar, especially at the beginning of a new sensor. So most people will exit auto mode, switch over to manual mode, and keep checking their sugar every once in a while to make sure that it's at a safe level, or an in-range level. So that insulin sensitivity needs to be accurate, because if you do have a high, let's say my sugar is 200, and I want to do a manual correction, and that insulin sensitivity is way too aggressive, now I'm going to have an extreme low, and then I'm going to start the roller coaster effect of dealing with a high and a low and back and forth. So that insulin sensitivity needs to kind of also be adjusted as well. Tip number 2. This is something that I have. Everybody laughs at me who knows me, because it's on every one of my devices. But I have a digital copy of my insulin pump manual on everything. It's on my MacBook, it's on my iPhone, and it's on my iPad, because I never know when I'm going to need that. The physical manual that come with the pump is with all of my current pump supplies in the event of an emergency and somebody who was not me needs to get it. I keep all of my current pump boxes with all of my serial numbers and everything in the exact same spot that I keep all of my packaged supplies. In the event of emergency, somebody needs to grab that, it's there, and all the manuals are inside, because I have digital copies. So download those digital copies. They're available on Medtronic's website. Put them on your phone. Get you an app where you can upload it. I use Notability. You can use a pen or a highlighter with your finger, and I highlight it. And I mark that sucker up, because that makes it mine. And then if you pay for Notability, which I do, I did buy it. I think it's like $10. It uploads to the cloud, and then all of my notes go to all of my devices. So do that. It will help. You can read through your pump. You can learn what things are. Because surprisingly, I had a 530G for 4 years, and I did not find out what the dual and square wave bolus was until I had got my 670G. So those are kind of good things about your manual. And then your manual can also kind of help you understand a little bit more how the system works. Your user experience will be better than the manual in the long run, but you could be curious at where a setting is or what a setting actually does. For example, if you look at your under Smartguard, under auto mode, you're going to get the auto mode. You can turn that on or off, and you're going to get auto mode BG alert. You can turn that on and turn that off. What does that BG alert do? That BG alert gives you an alert on your pump when a blood glucose reading is needed for auto mode. If you don't have that alert on, you will not get an alert on your pump. I leave mine off, and you'll go into safe basal. So when I look at my pump and I see it's in safe basal, it'll stay in safe basal for 2 hours. I know I need to do a blood sugar check and compare that to what my sensor's showing, and then either enter the BG into the pump, or if it's close, I'll go ahead and I'll calibrate. Just kind of one of the reasons why that manual is always good to kind of have with you. Finally, tip number 1, don't get frustrated. Enjoy your pump. You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. We have to stay focused on those good days, and we have to keep working to where we turn a row of good days into a week of good weeks. Everybody shares the post, especially now that there's an app. I feel like our time in range, now that I have this app, I can constantly look at it. It's kind of similar to the fuel economy in my car. I want to get the best possible. Everybody wants to get 90% time in range or even 100% time in range. But we have to remember, we have to be patient. You might not be getting that time in range that you want because something's not set up correctly. It's not your fault. It's not necessarily the pump's fault. It's just the pump's not looking at the way it needs to be because the setting is wrong. Talk to your care team. Reach out to them. Tell them what's going on. Share your frustrations. Read your manual. Come up with ideas. Look at your CareLink reports. Look at all the data that we have available and try to figure out what the issue is and how to resolve it. It's a lot. It can be frustrating. that's just what I'm trying to tell you guys. Don't get frustrated. Enjoy the little achievements that we do have, because diabetes isn't simple. And in my mind and my eyes, diabetes makes every one of us a stronger individual, because we learn the patience and we learn the control of dealing with it constantly. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope if you have any questions, you'll drop a comment down below. Hopefully you'll help inspire me for some more content, because I'm kind of running a little low on ideas, but I want to try to take my experience and help you guys as much as I can. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys next week. Have a wonderful week.